welcome back to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Mandy Heibel.
Hi, Mandy. Thank you so much for your time in introducing yourself and your experience in educating us with your peripartum cardiomyopathy diagnosis. Why don't you introduce yourself with state and how old were you when you were diagnosed PPCM?
Okay, well, my name is Mandy Heibel. I am from Minnesota, like rural Minnesota.
Mhm.
And I was diagnosed when I was 27 years old for the first time. And I actually relapsed with my second pregnancy as well.
Okay. And how long ago was this? In what
Um,
year?
it'll be, so Evelyn was born in 2009, and I was diagnosed 6 days after her delivery. And then Elena was born in 2011 in March. And I was diagnosed, I relapsed about 24 hours after her delivery.
Okay. So both pregnancies, during your pregnancies, you were never once diagnosed peripartum cardiomyopathy PPCM until after you delivered.
Well, correct. Well, with Elena, so with Evelyn, no. Essentially, I was sick so this is the first baby, Evelyn, in 2009. I went in repetitively because my blood pressure was very high, and they just kept sending me home saying that I was a over paranoid mom, that I was anxious. And finally my blood pressure was like, I know the day they were going to induce me, they were going to wait. I was 5 days over with her, actually, over my due date. And I called the doctor and I told him that my blood pressure was like 152 over 90 something. And he told me to come in at 9 p.m. that night. And they did induce me at that time. But
And did you have C-sections or did you give birth vaginally?
I had C-sections with both. Extremely tragic. Well, it was very difficult delivery with Evelyn. I was in labor for 24 and a half hours. Her heart started to decel, and they raced me down. It was the most terrifying thing ever, and raced me down, and I had a C-section then.
And that's why diagnosis is so important for both mommy and baby.
And baby, right.
And so I do hear the pattern of C-section
Right.
with being diagnosed after, when life is at a serious threat.
Right.
So,
And I know with Elena, we had it scheduled, as a C-section. I didn't even, because I ended up pregnant with Elena so soon after, they're 18 months apart. I wasn't technically fully recovered. And they did not want me to have her, and I refused to not have her. And they had it scheduled, and a whole huge team, and they were super prepared and I delivered her at the Mayo Clinic in that aspect, and saw like a lot of specialists during my pregnancy with her. So they were more proactive because they kind of knew what I had at that point, but yet when I relapsed, they didn't even believe me. So,
see, and that's the thing is that once medical professionals in a medical community is educated, they do not apply the information, which is extremely careless, which is
right.
why we're talking about this.
Right.
I mention it almost in every video, the reason why I started this docuseries and why I started the podcast and will soon go live is because my experience at the hospital where I gave birth in biggest hospital in Los Angeles, they didn't have any awareness. But then once I educated them, they were unwilling to learn, to the point where there are still deaths continuing after childbirth there. November 21st, 2021, a young girl, 33 years old, Leah, just gave birth. She had her times of death called at Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills. So I'm, fighting for justice on behalf of myself in my situation with having cardiac arrest death and hearing stories where women are almost 15 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out, recovered from PPCM. But the same stories that they are describing are exactly the same situations that women today are being forced to put in. There has been zero change and zero movement once even educated 20 years ago, where even the American Heart Association has been aware for 20 years that women's heart during pregnancy is a huge high maternal mortality death rate in the United States of America. I mean, 1 in 20 heart transplants in the US are women, and PPCM is responsible for those heart transplants, 1 in 20.
Right.
And it's all preventable.
Absolutely.
With early diagnosis, with a simple blood test that costs $15 out of pocket, which is the BNP.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there's something so simple where there's a real easy, practical solution to a very life-threatening, serious problem for both mother and baby, even after 20, 30 years, there has been no update on the training, the education, but most importantly, the willingness to listen.
Right.
I had a Zoom call with doctors the other day, and not one survivor that was part of this community collaboration between patients, survivors, as well as doctors had the floor. I was speaking up for all survivors. I have a docuseries. They never asked me a question when I have most of the answers, because we are the study.
Right.
And they need to be educated, whereas they want to be the ones educating, but they can't. It's too late. They need to listen, and they need to be educated by the study. We are the study.
Right.
It's called policy and it's called practice. That's why they call it medicine. But how can you apply policy and practice if you're not even listening to the study? Because they want to be the ones to be educating.
Right.
They have the PowerPoint presentation. They're educating survivors. We don't need to be educated. We already are. We lived it. We're the ones educating you.
Right.
They were not interested because, once again, they have the authority, or they think that they do. And one of the doctors, she said, we're all in this together. We're all in the, we're all, what did she say? We're all fighting for the same, we're all in the same goal here. Like, we're all the same team. No, we're not. We are far from the same team, honey. One doctor, Dr. Hill, I was telling him an example of a woman in Bakersfield, Memorial Hospital sent her home, 41 weeks pregnant. She's having fainting spells. She's having all of her heart being crushed by the fluid. She has fluid everywhere in her face, everything. They kept sending her home. I ended up sending her to Kern, but I had to talk to labor and delivery head. And I said, I have a woman who's 41 weeks pregnant. This baby is baked. He's overdue his due date. He needs to come out. She is PPCM. Can you get this baby out? She says, what's PPCM? So I'm telling this doctor this. I said, she's the head of and I said, oh, she's telling me she's been the head of labor and delivery for over 37 years. I'm educating her on peripartum cardiomyopathy. Yes, they took her. Yes, they helped her. But I'm educating the labor and delivery. And he said, oh, well, that was just one. I said, no, sir. That's in every hospital that has been evaluated in the United States of America. Their faces could not believe that I actually spoke up. I had survivors messaging me on my Messenger Facebook saying they were cheering me on. One's cheering me on in the car. One's like, you go, girl, you tell them, because, and then they wanted to brush me off and keep me quiet. And they said, is there anybody else that wants to speak? Nobody would speak up. I'd say, I'd speak up. I got stuff to say. I have a lot to say. I'm interviewing women all over the world. Scotland, England, Canada, Australia, and all over the United States. There is a pattern in the United States. Ask me questions. Nope. I got off. My heart rate was going crazy. And I think people don't realize that when a person sits in an authority seat, they think that they don't have the right to speak, that they only have the right to listen. And that's not fair. We are people. Doctors are just people. A good doctor is not a doctor with a fancy degree. A good doctor is a doctor who cares and listens.
Right.
At this point, you and I coming together today are venting about how we were treated as women in the United States, pregnant with zero diagnosis, that led us to have complications later on with you. You had another baby with a relapse. And then for them to still not believe you when you had a prior diagnosis.
Right.
Is appalling and unacceptable with one of the richest countries in the world.
Absolutely. It was frustrating.
It's beyond. Women shouldn't have to advocate for themselves. There should already be an advocated, mandatory, raising the blood screening lab standard testings for all pregnancies in gynecology before women have to be evaluated by an ER, or when their life is at a threat, or after they give birth, when it was induced during pregnancy.
Right.
And it's why I'm frustrated, because I'm sitting here with you today, not on behalf of just us and our stories, but for our children, your girls.
Absolutely.
Your grandchildren that you will hopefully meet someday.
Right.
My son's 5. I'm in bad shape. I play it off as I'm good. But you know what? I stand strong. I'm a survivor. I wish I can, he talks about graduating high school.
Yeah.
I want to be there for that. I said, and I'm like, and you're going to go to college. I'm getting him to an elementary school right now. I said, I want to be here the whole way. And I am frustrated and angry with no justice whatsoever. With even just to say, I'm sorry that this happened. No. Most women get exactly what I got. The brush off, saying that we got the bad luck of the draw as women when it's preventable. We get the bad luck of the draw with mostly if not all, gynecology having absolutely zero awareness of what an NT-proBNP test is, the preventions for maternal mortality, know what the abbreviations for PPCM, or the standard awareness of peripartum cardiomyopathy and the layers of it once, you know, you have to live with something like this.
Right.
They don't care because we're just vessels that just give birth, but we're not treated as a separate vessel from the baby. All the blood tests come back normal because they're testing us, but they're testing the baby us. We need our own diagnosis blood test that only test mommy. We are
Right.
separate. That's the NT-proBNP test. That is the BNP test. We would love to have the SFLT1, which is the cardiotoxic fluid kit instrument with the PIGF of the placental growth factor, like Canada has, like the UK has. It's not FDA approved in the United States of America. So that's why they're diagnosed during pregnancy. And women in America are diagnosed when we're either at a death threat, like me, waking up from my times of death, or like you, after C-section and diagnosed from the grace of like God, of somebody having any awareness to know to even diagnose you as that, whoever that earth angel was for you.
Right.
So we're banking on earth angels.
Right. And he said my doctor saw it one time in his residency in New York City. And like I said, I'm in a very, very rural area, very small community. And I don't know how it happened, but my actual doctor, or my OB, he left halfway through. Another doctor had to take over, like you said, kind of by the grace of God. Another doctor took over my case and delivered my daughter because my doctor went on vacation.
Yeah, so did mine. She went to Hawaii. I told her I can't close my hand. She's like, I'm in Hawaii. I'm like, I'm dying. Fuck you.
Yeah. He literally came to the ER. The day I walked,
she didn't even deliver my baby. Somebody else did.
I walked into that ER and they literally put the oxygen sensor on me, took my blood pressure, at the check-in, and they had me raced into another room like that fast. And then I remember him running all these labs and all these tests. And this doctor said, you need to run that test again. Like, I remember him saying that on the phone, and he's like, that can't be right. But my BNP number was so extremely high that he reran the test and said, I can't believe this, but this is what you have, and if it wasn't for him, I probably would not be here. I was extremely, extremely ill that day. And I ended up in the ICU for a significant amount of time after that, without my daughter, which super frustrating. I lost those first, 5 to 7 days of her life. And even after, that I couldn't bond with her. And I still feel like to this day that there's some of that bonding thing that I lost out on that I will never get back during that period of time. And that is super frustrating to me, that her dad was the one that was nurturing her the first days of her life, That's really frustrating. And thankfully I got that moment with Elena, because I refused for them at Mayo Clinic. They were going to send me to the cardiac CCU. And I said, I'm not leaving my daughter. And I know if you check me out, then you check her out and she can't be with me. And I said, figure it out. You need to figure it out how I can be with her, because I already lost out on this once already. I'm not doing it again. And they allowed me to stay on the floor, the OB floor, but I was a hassle to them because I required much more work, than
because
your average patient.
Oh, how
Right.
dare you for
Yeah.
experiencing maternal mortality and having the
Right.
fear of your life when you just gave birth.
Right.
I mean, like, I
I
know.
know.
What hospital was that?
And that was at the Mayo.
Hmm?
Yeah. The Mayo Clinic in Minnesota.
That was the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. Shame
Yes.
on them.
Yeah, it was
Shame
frustrating.
on them.
But they
But
they did
but they obviously knew about the BNP test because they're the Mayo Clinic and it's the only early diagnosis as well as for possible cancer.
right. Well, the
I
Mayo
mean,
did
so of course
the Mayo did the
that.
BNP.
They've known it.
They did the BNP. My first baby, they
Yeah,
did
sure.
not. But the Mayo did the BNP. They just didn't believe me. Like, I legitimately sat there. I had my family around my side. And when I knew they did an echo right after delivery, right? They did one before, they did one right after. And then right after that echo, I started getting ill, like sick. And I knew I was sick. I was swelling. I knew I was in heart failure. My cardiologist was gone. Had she not been gone, she was getting her some big fancy award down in New Orleans. So it wasn't her fault at all. But I kept telling them that I am in heart failure, and I wrote "help me" in my legs, literally, and I have photos of that. And I kept telling my nurse that
Yeah, send them. I'll post them up in this video.
yeah, I will.
You wrote it on your legs.
In my legs, they were that swollen, and all she was concerned about is me getting up to walk. And I said, no, I'm in heart failure. And then I finally demanded that I speak to a cardiologist and that I get an echo done. And they kind of looked at me funny, and I said, I want one done now. Like, I'm in heart failure right now. Like, I wasn't yesterday, I am today. Like, I know I've done it before. I know what it feels like. And
so you're like at this point demanding for them to
yes,
to treat you and to
yes,
save you, which should already be mandatory during your pregnancy.
right. And they went through all of this. Like,
So messed up.
went through all of it. They all know that I had it, and that one nurse did not believe me. And finally, a cardiologist, I don't know who he was, he showed up at my bedside with somebody to do an echo right then and there. And immediately after that echo, I was raced to the ICU because I had relapsed. And
the Mayo Clinic. And you see, you feel like probably how I feel. You know, I mean, I'm 5 years out, but I've evolved where when you go to the best, nobody's the best with lack of awareness.
Right.
And nobody is the best that can't show compassion for a woman that's dying of maternal mortality when women have been giving birth since the beginning of time. And I say this in every video just in case someone missed it. This should be an ancient conversation because it's medically proven that no woman should have to suffer or die. And they just have not updated their handbook, or what do they call their textbook, medicine.
Right.
And, you know, for me, it was the best in Beverly Hills, Cedars-Sinai, East and West Tower, you know, the ER clinic, you know, they're the best in Hollywood because they're so big and they're so, you know, wealthy, like looking type of hospital that, you know, they're the best. Nobody's the best if women are still dying after childbirth because they're not applying what they know or what they don't know and learn from a person like me that survived maternal mortality death and came back from death to say very important life-saving informative information. Instead, they took as informative educational information as fearful. And another girl just recently died at their hospital on November 21st, 2021. That's when it's like, what is it going to take for the Mayo Clinic to not believe a woman who already even has a previous diagnosis and is having relapse and doesn't believe you?
The nurse did not believe me.
That
at all.
is disgusting.
It was frustrating to say
It's
the least.
beyond it's
I
beyond
was
frustrating.
angry.
It's
Angry.
absolutely unacceptable,
Mhm.
appalling. And how dare she as a woman? Who is this
Right.
woman? Do you don't know her
I don't
name?
know. All I know is all she cared about was me getting up to walk, because she said if I got up and walked, I would feel better. And she had it on my chart, and I kept refusing to get up because I knew, and my friends and family were all there. They were all extremely frustrated. And I finally like said, I need to talk to somebody else. Like, you're not helping me. I need
Because she
somebody
wasn't
else.
listening.
No,
She shouldn't be in practice medicine.
I think she thought I was crazy, literally. And I didn't get up. I refused, which is not like me. Like, I usually do whatever medical staff says. I try to, fulfill those things. I understand how important it is to not have blood clots and all these other things, especially after a
Yeah,
C-section.
basically you're a good patient.
Right.
You know
But
how to cooperate, but they don't know how to listen.
that's exactly why I didn't walk. And I told my family, I'm not doing this. We need to do something,
Right.
And at that time, and then finally, like after I demanded the cardiologist, and they actually did that. They did. They finally brought one here to come. He came and he talked to me, and I just said, my doctor's not here. If she was here, this would not be happening right now, right?
Mhm.
And
But your
yeah,
doctor's on vacation.
right. She was getting like a medical award down in New Orleans at that time, and she was absolutely incredible. Like, if it wasn't for her, Elena wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her, because everybody gave up on me. I had 7 doctors give up on me because I had this PPCM diagnosis after Evelyn, right? And
Now
every doctor,
because now you're at
right,
you're a liability.
absolutely. So they all just
Right.
like said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not touching you. I went through how many cardiologists, how many doctors. Finally, I was so frustrated. I was not going to not have Elena. I knew that if I were to die from this, it would be towards the end, right? And she would be viable. It was a hard thing. And I know that, like, leaving my other daughter, but I'd have 2 girls that are going to outlive me, and making that choice, but then finding somebody to actually follow through with it was extremely difficult. And that's when I found Dr. Blowett, and I told her, and I said, I'm having this baby. I need help. I need your help. And I mean, I think, my stars every day because of her, and having my daughter, who is now going to be 11 at the end of March, unbelievable. But that's another frustrating point.
Goals, those are goals for me. I reach him, when he's 11.
Yeah.
Every day is like a blessing for us, and you're a miracle, and you like speaking up and helping
Right.
me create, as well as everybody, this movement. It's not a movement yet, but we're creating the pregnancy movement.
Absolutely. And it needs to be.
And I appreciate you showing up. I do, because it's something that we need to expose, that this is extremely common. It's not, they all say it's rare. It's rare for a medical doctor to have awareness. It's not rare to get PPCM. It's just rarely diagnosed.
Right. And they don't want to talk about it.
And they don't want to talk about it.
They don't want to make people paranoid.
They don't want to. Well, no, it's what it is. It's admitting that the entire time that women have been giving birth, which has been since the beginning of time, that they have failed us. And medical community cannot accept that. So now what they're trying to do is catch up with the times, educate everybody, when too late. We are educating you We're the ones that brought it up to you. Now you're
Right.
like, oh shit, I'm a doctor. I need to step up because I'm an ER doctor and, we're on the same team. No, we're not.
Right.
Women are not on the same team as the medical community at all. We are always defeated.
Right.
And it's because nobody listens. And it was just proof right on that interview. I mean, I didn't, we have a feeling inside of us that we know we're not crazy. Like we can feel our bodies. If our heart goes up or down, my heart, I was getting frustrated. So I just kept speaking up because they kept saying, does anybody want to speak up? Now I see a bunch of people on that site on the Zoom call that, Christina, she spoke up, Christina Peacock. She's got like literally a baby in her arms and she's got oxygen around her and she's always got tubes going on around her. And she's still like speaking up. But she was like the only one. Everybody else felt like how they do when they're at a doctor's office.
Right.
They sit there and the doctor does the evaluation. They sit there, the doctor knows more. They sit there and no, absolutely not. They do not know more. They are not educated. It is not trained. It is not mandatory. It is not standard. And they need to know what the study is,
Right.
which are the women.
Right. That spend 12 years of their lives researching every aspect of everything about this disease.
And
like I have. I
they didn't ask
settle
me any
until I knew.
questions.
Right. I didn't settle until I told them half the time.
Yeah, they didn't say, how many are you interviewing a day? How many, because they weren't asking me questions, I kept bringing it up.
Right.
These are the questions that you should be asking me. What are your statistics? We have our statistics, but what are we basing them off of? We don't have you don't have a diagnosis in gynecology. So what are you basing your statistics off of? You don't have a diagnosis during pregnancy. So are you basing it off of women who have died? Are you basing it off of women who come forward? I mean, like, what are you basing it off of? Global? Because it's not the United States.
Right.
So, they need to understand that medicine is a huge part of learning and practicing and policy. And they can't no longer say, oh, I was somewhat educated about this with a little line in a textbook that says it briefly on chapter 50 something, and it go in one ear and out the other. And it's the same thing when women are talking every day. It's not connecting, which is why when I say it's not connecting, it still didn't connect with the Zoom call that was just last week. And I think it was one of another, it was, I'm not even going to say it, but it was all the survivors were frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she thought it was a good Zoom. I thought it was a fantastic PowerPoint presentation, honestly, but wrong audience. That PowerPoint presentation should be with gynecology and labor and delivery. Why were PPCM survivors being educated about what we already know because we had to survive through death?
Right.
And then not talk to us or
Right.
not want to really, they were open for discussion, but they weren't. Do you know what I'm saying? I like to talk about ideas, solving problems, things that can be implemented, and the flow of the conversation of how I thought maybe this could go as we are in the same team or, whatever. No, it wasn't. It was I felt like I had to convince a doctor that the entire state of California, as well as every state in the United States of America in labor and delivery, basically is absolutely zero awareness.
Right.
And he was saying, no. And I'm like, I'm out there. I'm in the field. I'm talking to them. What are you talking
Right.
about? Like,
Right.
I'm talking to the heads.
Yes.
And you're telling me no? You're telling me that the sky is green and the grass is blue? And I'm like, no, sorry.
Right.
I'm not, no longer are you an authority in this situation anymore. You can
Right.
help by saving lives by applying the diagnosis as early as 10 weeks pregnant, educating gynecology and labor and delivery, and move forward from here. But
Mhm.
even still, I feel like it's going to take a long, long time. I don't know what's it going to take to connect,
Right.
but I think the more it's exposed, somebody will step up to make it connect.
Right.
Or
And
we're
it's
not advocating for our lives, where we're actually being advocated with the early diagnosis as early as 10 weeks pregnant during our pregnancy.
right.
Our children's pregnancies,
Right.
not
And I
us.
pray by that
We're
they
done.
have this figured out by the time my daughters are needing that, and that's my one hope, and like advocating so hard for this for them, like you
Yes.
said earlier. And it is important. It's important in everything. And all of this is, it's so like touching to myself too, like I've been advocating for 12 years. I've had my pages, I've had all of that, and I've stepped away, I guess, so to say. I did
No,
a
you're
lot.
present. You're here.
Right. And I am now. And,
You can take, I mean, we have our waves,
right.
it's, my mom, she was with, when I had my heart procedure, talking to her every day and, having her watch me suffer until death. And then when my heart surgery was on February 14th, my second heart anniversary, 2018, on Valentine's Day, when I had that defibrillator removed and that thing out of my heart, 4 months after that, my mom was diagnosed with walking pneumonia from the stress, and she died. She couldn't handle it. So
Right.
then 18 months later, my father was in love with my mom since he was like 13. He died of a broken heart, but he also had a little dementia. He had other issues, but it really, stress and the trauma really
Right.
affects your health. And when
Absolutely.
we watch our children, we want to be able, my mom was my best friend and she watched me suffer till death. It's only natural that she died 4 months later because she loved me. But I had to take my moment. I was literally paralyzed. PPCM didn't take me down because I came back from the dead. The heart surgery didn't take me down because I survived it. When my mom died, because of PPCM, I was paralyzed and I had to take about a good 2 years off.
Right.
And then I came back with a vengeance
Right.
with this docuseries because
awesome.
Leah died at Cedars-Sinai. What happened to me? Only she stayed dead and I lived. And so like, I'm her voice.
Right.
And I'm her voice that was taken from her because she was never early diagnosed.
Right.
I lived, I mourned my parents. I grieve every day. I will be endless grieving, which I realize it's never going to go away. I blame PPCM. I blame my doctors.
Right.
And so, yeah, this is our fight for our children, because at this point, we are demanding it. Like, we demand the BNP. Like, we demand to know others to be educated on this preventable disease so we can prevent future catastrophes for families, not just the woman, not just the baby, not just the husband or the partner, but the actual parents, that have to watch their children, you know, giving their grandchild being born and then having to, it's awful.
Right.
But the sad thing is that it's so preventable with a
100.
simple blood test.
Right. And
That's what's most disturbing.
and them following through.
Applying it. You know,
Absolutely.
it's called practice medicine for a reason. You know, you practice, you study, and then you practice and you apply it. And they're not applying what they know. They're unwilling to listen. Still to this day, still as they're making PowerPoint presentations and educating, they're still not listening. It's appalling. I'm beyond frustrated, but I'm grateful because, you know, we lived. And so it's one of these things where I think, you know, unless there is change, we'll keep talking about it.
Right.
You know, I mean, your daughters are 16, 11?
12 and 11 and 10. So Elena will be 11 here in March. So, and Evelyn will be 13 in September. So 13.
And are they aware? Are they educated?
Yes, they are. And that's a really hard subject because now they're old enough to understand and they're asking questions. And I want to be truthful with them and truthful about what happened, but also to try and remain kind of moderate, and that's hard because I don't want to terrify them.
You don't want to scare them.
At their age, you know.
But now,
so
I do
talk to them and I do tell them about it. I do now that they're getting older, and you know, I kind of maybe talk to one a little different than I talk to the other one, you know, at their age levels and their capabilities of knowing what happened and the truth. And now they're seeing pictures and they're asking questions, and it's also helping me kind of get through some of that past trauma as well. That
absolutely
is still there.
That weight is like lifted.
Right.
If ever your daughters want to, you know, have an interview with me, keep it very, you know, to their meeting them at their level of their age and not scaring them, but letting them know that you know that you're a miracle and that now that you have the awareness that, you know, you're smarter than most medical doctors all over the world. And that it wasn't your fault. It was in fact the medical's fault. It was in fact that, you know, women, this is good for you to know at a young age that you will always need to advocate for yourself as women and women's rights. And I think that there could be something very, how do you say, therapeutic for a young child to be able to communicate. You know, there's three very powerful words that I always say to my son, which is, I believe you. And with that, he is able to communicate with me on all levels that I never even thought he could, you know, and express himself because he knows that I believe him. And talking about things I think are so important, especially at a young age, because that's when that's when you have the most impact. You know, if they can go 50-50, you want to guide them that they are, you know, dynamic and exceptional because they are PPCM babies. And because they are smarter than any doctor in the world. Because they have firsthand experience. And that they could change the world if they wanted to. You know, it can totally give them a whole new perspective on, you know, this woman movement, you know, and you know, to say that they're a part of something because they are the PPCM babies of our time. That can speak on behalf of PPCM babies, you know.
Right.
Most of the interviews that I have, women are literally holding their babies.
Mhm.
Their babies are not big. My
Right.
son, he's 5.
Yeah.
He does a video and a monologue, which he does very well of, and he talks about heart awareness. But he's
Mhm.
still 5. You know,
Right.
a lot changes
I can see there.
between 5 and 10.
Absolutely. And even between 10 and 12, every year their capabilities and their knowledge and their willingness to learn and things every year is just
Absolutely.
remarkable. I never thought I would get to see these days. I never did. I honestly truly didn't believe I would make it this long.
Which is why
But
you are a miracle.
and yes, and being here and like being able to watch that and like I take every day, like every single day, day by day. I live in the day. And
Absolutely.
people don't understand my way of life, but I live every day. I don't plan. I don't plan ahead. I don't do
Yeah.
any of that because what I need to focus on is today.
Yeah.
And that is it.
Well, they say, I just posted it on Facebook, is that, it was once said that people need a potential to have a better tomorrow. So the potential of having any type of development or appreciation or some sort of, guidance that we can provide for our children will be a better tomorrow.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the past is history.
Mhm.
The future, well, they say that the past is history. The future hasn't come yet, and all we have is now, which is why we call it a gift, the present moment, the precious present, which
Right.
is the gift. And if you actually read, since you do live in the moment, you do live in the now, which I absolutely love that I heard you say that. One of my, it is my favorite story. And I actually, when I was in school, I printed it out for each one of my peers when I went to University of Pennsylvania in the School of Social Work, because it's so powerful. It's written by Spencer Johnson, and it's called The Precious Present. And it's only 28 pages long, or like not even, but it is one of the most powerful reads. And it's the way how, you don't find it, under the sea in treasures. You don't find it in mountains. You take yourself wherever you go. And it's about being happy in the moment. When you're
Right.
too far ahead, you lose yourself in the now. And if you constantly think about what happened in the past, you lose yourself in the now. And so the now is all we have, which is a
Right.
gift, which is why we call it the present moment. So if you're ever interested in a quick, awesome, very
Yes.
inspiring choice of words in a little cute story, it is called The Precious Present by Spencer Johnson, and have your girls read it. I bought my niece, and I signed it. I bought her The Precious Present, and I signed it. I'm actually going to get one for my son. Now that we're talking about it, he should have his own. I'm gonna sign it. Love Mama.
I do that for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, buy them each one. The Precious
Yes,
Present.
absolutely.
And it's actually, you can go online, and there's an online reading about it. So you can read the book online. It's free.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you could buy the book on like Amazon.
Right. I think I'll do that probably.
Yeah. And if you
Awesome.
use Amazon Smile and choose PPCM Fund as your choice of nonprofit, because I think it's 5% goes to the nonprofit. What is it? It's a percentage, but it's small. Hey, I don't know.
Hey, something, right?
It alerts them that the nonprofit is worthy.
Right.
I think. If anything, it doesn't even matter if it makes a penny. It's not about that. It's about the awareness. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yay. Well, it was so lovely, speaking with you and hearing about your girls. And again, if you want to make a scheduled appointment for them with me individually or them together, they would be our first PPCM little ladies. And I think that, I was a teacher. I have a 5-year-old. I am very compassionate to children and the choices of words that we use towards them. So
Right.
I would take that all into consideration, but I think it might really help them therapeutically, as well as just having a little bit of different perspective than maybe what they're
Right.
internalizing from not
Absolutely.
from you, but from another survivor mommy.
Right.
You
I
know,
really think that'd be beneficial, especially for my older one right now.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay, well,
Yes.
yeah, set it up, um and I look forward to meeting them, and however you want to like manage that. So,
Right.
but I'll be prepared, and to have a different mindset, different hat on how to approach this
Right.
preventable woman's movement. So,
Right.
dude, is that he keeps opening and closing the door. He keeps peeking my son out. He's like, peek. It's okay.
Are you done yet?
Yeah, that's what he's doing. He wants to know if he can come out. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
And I really had a lovely interview with you. And I look forward again to meeting your beautiful family and talking further on this subject.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for all you're doing.
You're so very welcome. It's a lot, but it's worth my time.
Yeah.
And time is precious and priceless. You can spend it any way you want. And I choose
Right.
to spend it this way. So,
Wonderful.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And take
Yeah.
care.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Have a great day.